Congrats on getting beyond $1 million. What got you here won't always get you there. This is a podcast for entrepreneurs who want to reach beyond their 7-figure business and scale to 8, 9, and even 10 figures. I'm Brad Weimert, and as the founder of Easy Pay Direct, I have had the privilege to work with more than 30,000 businesses, allowing me to see the data behind what some of the most successful companies on the planet are doing differently. Join me each week as I dig in with experts in sales, marketing, operations, technology, and wealth building. And you'll learn some of the specific tools, tactics, and strategies that are working today in those multi-million, 8, 9, and 10-figure businesses. Life can get exciting beyond $1 million. Well then, I should probably introduce you, Jesse Elder.
That's me.
So I like talking to you in general.
I don't think we've had a boring conversation yet.
No, if the ones that border on it are a result of me being in a fog somewhere late at night.
But then it's twice as entertaining for me. So the boring factor remains about the same.
That's okay. Fair enough.
Or non-boring.
Fair enough. Somebody told me a long time ago that if you find somebody boring, it's your fault.
100% agree.
I just really like that mentality.
Yeah.
I don't know if I fully agree or not, but I think it's a good challenge.
I love that. I don't know where I heard this from, but you know, the person who says I'm bored is really just boring.
Yeah.
They're just like not an enchanting sort of person. They're not fascinated with their life. They're not motivated by anything in particular. So they're just kind of waiting to be served up with some sort of stimulation that has to meet their standard. And if it doesn't, then they're bored. But that's a lot of abdication of your own creative power.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's precisely why I like the challenge, right? Mm-hmm. Because I do get bored.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's lazy. Right?
We're going to talk about that today.
Yeah.
The strategic power of intentional laziness.
Well, exactly. I had a realization maybe a year ago that the way it came through was the most productive thing that I can do. Sometimes the most productive thing that I can do is nothing. And I just need that space sometimes for thoughts to come through. I was getting a massage a couple of days ago, and I had like 7 different concrete, actionable things pop in my head during it. And I was like, oh, I should write that down. Oh, I should do that. Oh, I'm going to have to remember this. But it was a product of being open enough to execute.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. But today, I want to talk to you about sales because you have an unusual and different approach, I think, to sales. And I don't know if it's totally different, but certainly the framework of your life and where business intersects is different. And as a result, how you create products and offers, how you introduce them to an audience, and how you, enroll people or close people, and also how you deliver is just fundamentally different than I think most people. So I guess this is the question people always ask you, and I find your answers interesting, which are, what do you do?
This is perfect. I am going to be on another podcast, far inferior to this one.
Clearly.
I'm going to be on another podcast, and this came up because they were like, hey, can you write a bio?
Oh, this is going to be good.
Okay, here we go. So this is fresh from this morning. This is my bio du jour. Jesse Elder is the coach who holds the Facebook Live video record for improv philosophy and storytelling while performing poetry and music for 24 hours straight in December 2019. Jesse's tools and growth concepts come from lessons learned in a past life as a fighter where he entered into a series of no-rules cage matches before going on to run the most profitable martial arts schools in the world. His methods have been used with wild success by free-thinking, forward-focused entrepreneurs and other freedom lovers around the world to simplify their lives and dramatically expand their business while leading lives of deep purpose and meaning every day. His humor and warmth carry a message that will remind you of what you might have forgotten. You are the creator of your life's experiences, and no one outside of you can change that. He is internet famous with over 100 million views for his videos on time piercing, how to deal with haters, ethical cult building, and other interesting ideas his clients have found worth their time and energy. Jesse was born in Austin, Texas, has been to 51 countries, and returned to Austin, where he currently lives as the philosopher in residence at the W Hotel, while a world-class team builds a permaculture food forest and event sanctuary at a secret location outside town. If zombies attack, you'll want to know what he knows. People are often shocked to find out that not only is Jesse able to combine entrepreneurial transformation with comedy, but that he is also a surprisingly great dancer who once won a charity event for his Lindy Hop skills. All in all, Jesse's a really great guy who sometimes writes about himself in the third person, something he enjoys more than he ought to.
That's good. Should I be counting the number of countries that I'm visiting?
Yes.
That's the thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I consider like South Austin
a country.
A separate country. San Antonio is definitely a different country.
Are you
but
sure?
51 actual geographic borders, yes.
Are you sure that you are not a zombie already?
Oh, no. No, I'm not sure of that.
Okay.
I'm not sure of that, especially when I go to like California.
Probably
Seeing how people jump across the street to avoid me because my
fair.
face is naked.
Probably 70% of the time when I reference you and people don't know you, I use the phrase White Walker as a part of the description on account of the crystal blue eyes.
What is that a reference to?
Oh, have you not watched Game of Thrones ever?
I saw like 5 minutes of one episode.
Yeah, okay, well then, it's lost on you. I don't know what to tell you.
Homeschooling just biting me in the ass.
Yes, it is. Okay, so that I don't think helped clarify anything for anybody.
No, just kill time.
But it does point to educating people.
It does, and there's actually part of that bio actually is a strategic piece of my branding and my positioning, because every offer that I've created, and there's 30 something offers now, has always come from the classic intersection of, what do you love? What are you good at? And what is useful for people? What do they want? What are they asking for? And so the criteria of qualification, for me to qualify as useful for someone else, I have to be competent. For the offer to be useful for me, I have to enjoy it. And I don't enjoy doing things for cheap. And I don't enjoy doing things that I don't love. So I have to love it, and I have to get paid money that is exciting for me. And then if those two things combine, if I'm qualified and it qualifies for me, then is it useful for other people? So all the offers that I've created have come off of the momentum of just living my life, which happens to include getting to talk and work with lots of very successful people who are in lots of transition in their life, and not all of them entrepreneurs. I had a guy message on Facebook yesterday, and he said, I was watching your videos, scrolling because I was going to kill myself, and I was on the internet, and I was just scrolling. He said, I saw one of your videos, I watched it, and all of a sudden everything makes sense. It was like this fog went away, and now I don't have to kill myself. Is that dude an entrepreneur? I have no idea. Does it matter? No. That's a part of my, I would say purpose maybe, but that's a little nebulous. Bottom line is I just figured out a while ago that nothing is going to be rewarding unless I'm being myself. In the process of being myself and sharing whatever's interesting for me, there seems to be interest and value that other people are coming for. Then if I'm qualified and I've got tools or concepts that can help them move the needle in measurable ways, then an offer is born.
That would be a really interesting answer to the question, how do you think about creating products? Mm-hmm. And that's an interesting approach. So one of the things that I found out about you through years of weird conversations is that you didn't sit down one day and think, hey, you know what? I should sell information to people. And that's where I should get all of my revenue.
Yeah, no.
And the approach of that intersection of those three things, I think, is a fascinating one. And it's one that people don't generally think about. The other thing that's interesting about that to me is that the first 2 points were about you, right? It was, how does it serve me?
100%.
And then sort of the third part that had to be relevant was, how does that provide value to somebody else?
Yep.
But the first two were important.
Yeah. And because of that, I personally, I feel that as a coach or advisor or guide or whatever role I might be playing, I would be completely out of integrity if I was teaching from anything but a place of total joy. Because if what I'm sharing with people are tools and concepts for them to be happier and live more productive, more profitable lives, but I'm miserable while I'm sharing the stuff with them or working with them, then I'm completely out of integrity, because now I'm no longer embodying the principles that I'm trying to teach them.
Yeah.
So, and selfishness gets a bad rap, but I think it is the ultimate contribution to the world. if everybody could just be honest about what they really want and then just own that unapologetically without trying to hide or game or manipulate or whatever, it would be such a better world because then you'd always know where you stand with people.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I firmly believe that and by the way, I think when people hear that very often, the bullshit radar goes off with people. They're like, oh, that sounds like a way to rationalize whatever, right? Rationalize charging a lot.
Yeah.
So it happens with me. Yeah. The analytical, salesperson, business person hears that and they're like, oh yeah, okay, well I can justify things too.
Yeah.
But when I go through the thought process of all the layers, real talk, it comes back to everything. I don't believe in altruism. Everything comes back to you're doing it because it makes you happy.
Yeah. Makes you feel better.
Makes you feel better.
Wherever you're at on the emotional spectrum,
yep.
The only reason any of us do anything is we think we'll feel better in the doing of it.
Totally.
And anybody who says otherwise is totally lying to themselves.
Totally. And everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I really believe that the best thing that you can do in life, the most productive thing for society, for family, for friends, whatever group you care about, is to focus on yourself and be a better version of yourself. Mm-hmm. Because it's not possible for you to have the highest level of change with others, for others, if you don't allow yourself to be the best version of yourself.
That's so good, man. I love that. And I think about this often. It is a big piece of what I teach when I teach sales and marketing. I used to teach sales and marketing without focusing on delivery and experience and follow-up and all of that. And what ended up happening is I had people use the sales methodologies that I teach, blow up their businesses or teach it to a bunch of other people. But there was so much collateral damage because they're just closing sales like crazy. But then I would start hearing about, I would start asking, what happened to your client now, like after the sale? Where are they 3 months later? Where are they a year later? I was like, oh, I don't know. It's like, oh shit. So I stopped teaching sales and marketing without the service and delivery and relationship component because it really is all one. That being said, what your point I think is very powerful because if you're focusing on yourself, then the natural byproduct of your existence is value creation.
Right.
Versus, let me go create more value so I can become happier, more valuable, et cetera. And there I get so much inspiration and really instruction from just observing nature and observing the natural world. And there's nothing in nature that operates on outcomes. Human beings are the only thing that operate on outcome. Everything else in nature operates as a process. And so the sun, for example, emits this incredible radiation, this light, this heat. And the byproduct of that on this particular planet is we get photosynthesis, we get this literal solar energy, which has made life on Earth possible. But it's not like, let's imagine the sun had some consciousness and went to Tony Robbins seminars like, all right, here's my outcome. The sun is not going to be like, all right, feed the Earth. No, the sun is the fucking sun. It's just going to shine. Whether there's a planet there to receive the photons or not, it's just going to shine light because that light is a function, a natural byproduct of its existence, of its existence. And when I began to look at value creation, not as a strategic outcome, but I began to look at in the rearview mirror, what was the residual effect of my being in an environment? And I saw in myself the people that have changed my life the most, my mentors, my coaches, my role models. They didn't try to change my life. They were just like really good fighters, really good martial artists, really good teachers. And I got so much just by being around them, like called me into a bigger version of myself. And of course you feel like shit because you're like, oh, I'm not like as good as that person.
Right.
But that's part of the game.
It
like
is.
You can get intimidated by that. You can judge them for that. You can try and distribute their talent to other people that don't have talent, if you're the government.
Yes, I agree with these things. I also wonder from that perspective, most messaging is super impactful to some and less impactful to others and not at all to another party, right? Mm-hmm. So there's an audience that really latches on to to that approach or that mentality. And I think this idea of I'm going to be the best version of me, the ones that are going to be impacted the most by that are my experience or my thought in this moment is that those are probably the higher level players.
Absolutely. 100%.
Right?
100%.
And the ones that are lower level players that are trying to figure out life more, aren't as good as what they're doing, don't have the right discipline, attitude, mentality, et cetera, tend to see that and feel bad about themselves.
Right.
Or they need the deliberate coaching, training, hand-holding through the process.
Right. And it's such a diverse world that there really is something for everybody. And I certainly remember the early days of feeling depressed, feeling defeated, feeling like, what's the point? I'm never going to be able to get this. And there were times that I did have people in my life who were like, dude, come on. Like, you got this, and it's there's times we all need that. But I think that's a tool, and using any tool too much, trying to go back to the same thing is not going to allow you to evolve. So the clients that I can genuinely say that every single person I've worked with, I've enjoyed working with them. I wouldn't take their money if I didn't enjoy the relationship. And I've sold, stuff for $99 and have had clients pay $150,000. The level of joy that was the through line through all of that is consistent. So it's not like I enjoyed working with the $150,000 client more than I enjoyed running this 21-day challenge for $99. Even though we did have 3,500 people in it, that was pretty cool. But for me, it really is about someone's commitment. And I remember the days of not having any money to invest in coaching, but I was so committed. I was like, I'll do anything. I literally Karate Kid. Let me show up to the school. I'll mop the mats. I'll clean the mirrors. I just want to hang around you guys when you're training. And after a while, it's like, oh, why don't you come and train with us? I was like, really? Okay. And I'd get out there and just get the shit kicked out of me, which is fantastic because then you level up. So I remember vividly the days of not having resource financially, not even knowing how I could do it or even if I could do it. But I was committed. And I think my instructors and my mentors saw that. So they brought me in. And I have a real affinity for people who may not have the resource, but are willing to do what it takes to level up. That being said, there's a lot, you can accomplish a lot more, a lot faster in measurable terms and the real world, not just inside, with people who already have a tremendous amount of momentum.
Right.
And there's, I have a client who's coming into town next week who, I don't want to say all of it, but he basically invented the luxury travel rental industry back in like the late 90s. Companies that everybody's heard of. And he was the guy that started that and has seen so much expansion. When you have a business that has a $250 million month and you're just like, all right, cool. This is great. But then for him, it wasn't about the business. It was about who he was in the process of that. And that's what he's reached out to me for, is to have another deep dive into his purpose, into his vision, into his identity, so that he can take the best parts of those experiences, take all the wins and really get them sort of organized in his own thinking, and also take the losses so that you can, this is a woo-woo term, but it's not inaccurate, to alchemize those losses so that you take the pain away and you keep the lesson and you keep the experience and you literally turn it into something that's powerful, rather than tolerating the pain or trying to avoid the pain. You just get rid of the pain altogether. It's insanely rewarding to work with somebody who is able to play the game at that level, because the thinking is so fast. The way that I coach somebody at that level is entirely in collaboration. So it's much more like two jazz musicians improvising or two martial artists sparring, rather than sitting back with a whiteboard and like, okay, let's intellectually think about this stuff. That's not how we operate as beings. We can be fully embodied. So in a private day, we're going to do fight training. We're going to go do sauna at Kuya, go drop in the 240-degree sauna. We're going to go do ice bath. We're going to go out to the farm. We're going to go shooting. We're going to do all these things, which are fully embodied options that he's selected from a whole menu. Then I get to curate the experience. And it's just like you said, when you had the massage, it's in the in-between spaces. You're like, oh. And I believe that we can literally architect our own wisdom development But it doesn't happen through just hustling and focusing and pushing the button over and over again, because then you become boring. You become, it's like this incestuous thinking of, how do I succeed? And it really, the beauty is in the abstraction, but it has to be a strategic abstraction where you can't just get into the world of self-care. You can't just get into the world of hustle. It really takes a harmony of all these things, but that allows people to grow insanely fast. Because you just remove all the limits. You remove all the old residual thinking of, I don't know if I can do this. Well, let's go fucking skydiving, or I'm going to teach you how to spar. I'm going to teach you how to throw punch combinations that you never thought you'd be able to do. And in the process of that, with some other conscious linguistics that are thrown in, it rewires your whole being. You finish that fight combo and you're breathless, but you're an ethical predator, man. You're just like, I got this. And all of a sudden you realize all that other shit you thought was stopping you, ghost stories, absolutely non-existent in your reality anymore.
So there are 17 different trails that
there's a lot of loops. So
prance around.
That's all we do, man. Yeah. We just, every time we hang out, whether it's here or wherever.
Well, two things. One, I want to get back to sales, and two, you said something interesting early on there relative to the previous point, which was you like to latch onto the people. You're drawn to latch onto the people that are early in their journey if they have the hunger or the ambition to do so. And how I heard that was, or what I read into that was, those are the individuals that are focusing on themselves.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so those are the people that, because they're focused on themselves and learning and growing, those are the ones that you look at and you think, I can work with that one. I can do something there.
Yes.
And from an employment perspective, those are the people that I want in sales
100%,
and marketing and operations 100%. And everything. Even though I would take that person because their values are such and their character is such that I can develop it over the person that has the tactical experience, but misaligned values.
Love that.
And characters.
I love that. And what I hear in that, and this is just kind of coming to me now as a new thought, I think, the difference between someone's values and their value. And so this is brand new. This is a concept being born right now, thanks to this strategic alliance. When we look at an employee, a team member, even a customer, a client, or the audience, we tend to look at the value that person has. And seems to me, and I'm just paraphrasing what you just said, that if someone's values are aligned, then now we have a solid foundation. Now we can really jam because there's a level of trust, there's a level of mutual respect. And as long as we're aligned to a common vision, then we'll build it on the way. And so it's not about what skills do you have. It's like, what do you love? How much of your life are you actually enchanted with that you're not trying to escape from by coming to work for me? Because that's not going to fly.
Yeah.
Like you got to bring a love for life into this business, just like a relationship. It's like relying on someone else to make you happy. That's a loser's game, and yet people play it all the time. Ayn Rand had this great quote about love, and in order to say I love you, one must first be able to say the I. And so when most people say I love you, time out. Let's go to that first word. Who are you? Who do you know yourself to be? Do you have the ability and the capacity to go deep and explore and create yourself? And if the answer is no, then I love you is really just ping pong. It's like, I love you too, I love you too, like that. And that, historically ends horribly, 70% divorce or whatever it is now. I'll stop there. That's a whole other bunch of loops opened.
Yeah. So we talked about product creation. That's how you define. And what were the three pillars of that?
That is something that you love doing, something that you're really good at, and something that other people are asking for.
Got it. And in order for you to love it, part of that equation is that it has to be financially rewarding enough for it to be exciting for you.
Yeah. But and I would say that there's two components. Well, three. And I'll just take coaching and teaching. I love it because it is intrinsically rewarding. Jamie Wheel introduced me to this term, autotelic, where the behavior is the reward. Like doing something just doing it feels good. So for me, that's teaching. It always has been since I was a kid teaching martial arts. Just teaching felt good. You get in this zone. It's timeless. You're fascinated by it. It's fun. It's energizing, etc. So there's that intrinsic component. The second component to that first piece of loving it is that it's something that I can tell is making a difference. I know that this is having an impact on the people that are collaborating, receiving, etc. And third is that it has to be financially rewarding. And so whenever I look at an activity or a potential program, it's, do I feel so inspired to teach this and share this that I would do it for free because it feels so cool, like just to share this and then I can see the impact on other people and their eyes are lighting up and they're asking questions. Okay, cool. Now we're 2 out of 3. Is this financially rewarding? Well, that comes down to the third pillar, which is, do people want it? You know? Mm-hmm. And I heard this from Kevin Nations years ago. He said, everybody's always asking, when are people going to buy my stuff? The answer is the second you offer what they want. And I remember hearing that. I was like, it makes so much sense. And yet so many coaches and teachers and people that are operating in this wisdom economy don't understand that you don't get paid for your competence. You get paid for your communication. And your competence can be world-class. Yeah. You can still be broke. Yeah. And then people do get it. And they're like, oh, I need to improve my communication. But they still have a blind spot that's costing them everything. And they think they need to communicate better about what they do. Absolutely false. It's a complete trap. So the communication about what you do is far less important than the ability to ask questions, really, truly hear from other people what's going on for them, and then be able to have a dialogue that is all about what are they experiencing right now that they're trying to move away from? What are they trying to change? And what are they trying to change into? What do they want instead? Because literally nobody wakes up in the morning or stays awake at 4 o'clock in the morning going, God, I need an alignment coach. If only I could really understand my human design. That would change everything. No, literally nobody wants that shit. Nobody. And yet people are like, learn this, do this, do this, do this, because they're infatuated with their own work. People's income explodes once they realize it's not about them. It's not about the tools. It's not about the method. It's not about your sexy technology. It's about understanding truly what is the problem that the prospect or the client believes they have. And I tell for anybody that's watching this, you're gainfully employed as a knowledge provider. If you're selling wisdom, knowledge, information in any way, shape, or form, this is one of the things that I see really moves the needle for people financially. Routinely see coaches that are making $10,000, $15,000 a month. All of a sudden they start having like $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 months with no extra expense. They're not hiring anybody. They're not adding tech. Nothing. Just a few simple frames. And the example is a really simple one. Let's say there's this guy walking down the street. We'll call him Billy. Billy's walking down the street. He's not paying attention. He's kind of distracted. And he ends up crossing the street and stubbing his toe on the curb. Hard. Like he goes down. And he's holding his toe. His toe's like bleeding. And he's in agony. And in that moment, Billy looks up and he sees these billboards. And one billboard says, have you stubbed your toe? This is probably because you were distracted. Distracted walking is the number one cause of toe injuries in this country. And we have formed a foundation to be mindfully walking. So join the Mindful Walkers Foundation. No. Is that relevant? Probably. Is it accurate? 100%. But is that what this dude Billy cares about in that moment? Not at all. So he's sitting there, his toes spurting blood. He's sitting on the sidewalk, and then he sees the second billboard. And the second billboard says, have you been injured by an unsightly vertical curb? These dangerous vertical curbs are responsible for more toe injuries than anything else in our fair town. And we have decided to do something about it. Join us to flatten the curb. We are the Flat Curb Society. Dial 1-800-FLAT-CURB today. He's looking at that. He's like, no. Is it relevant? Sure. If there were flat curbs, would he have had this problem? No. But is that what this dude Billy cares about in that moment? Not at all. Then he finally, squinting through his tear-filled eyes and about to pass out from losing his toe blood, he looks at this final sign and it says, are you sitting on the ground right now holding your toe in a pool of your own toe blood? Call 1-800-TOE-TECH today, and our certified toe technician will be there within 60 seconds. We will give you a natural painkiller. We'll take that pain away and provide the relief that you're craving. Then our toe technician will take you in the toe mobile to the toe clinic, and we will take care of it. We will fix the toe injury. You will be right as rain, 24 hours or your money back. 1-800-TOE-TECH. And he's like, with bloody fingers, he's tiling, 1-800-TOE-TECH. Toe tech shows up, pain goes away, takes him to the toe clinic and goes. This is a horribly graphically strained analogy. But this is how marketers are screwing up in two of the biggest areas. They're trying to describe their understanding of the prospect's problem. And this is especially true in the wellness, mental health, mindset, personal development, spiritual coaching, all that kind of stuff. These are, almost without exception, individuals who have been through their own form of hell. Like something drove them to explore meditation, mindfulness, spirituality. And I can't think of an exception to this. It is deep personal pain that drove this individual to seek remedies and to find solutions. And they did. And then they found the solution, whatever it is. It's acupuncture, it's ayahuasca, it's whatever else. And now they're taking this modality, this method, human design, Enneagram, Colby, they're taking this thing and they're going, look what I have. But it's because they've already been on the journey and they forgot what it was like the night that they were staring down the barrel of a loaded gun. They forgot what it was like when they had to sleep on the street. They forgot the pain that they were in that drove them to seek the solution. So they're going on trying to talk about the solution. And then there's other people who make the mistake of talking about the environment. Like change that thing outside of you, change the environment, change all these things. And there are these activists that are powerful, passionate about changing something outside, but that's not the personalized problem that the prospect has. So if you begin to speak the language of when I'm teaching this, I call it symptomies, and you can speak the language of the exact symptoms that this person has, that they are describing to themselves, you immediately you go straight to the heart of trust because you're demonstrating such a useful empathy that person feels so seen and so heard and so connected to you because you're connected to them. And I've seen clients of mine who have exploded their money without ever talking about their tools, without talking about their method, their process, none of that. They'll collect a $10,000 or $15,000 sale over the phone or on chat. And then the person's like, oh yeah, how does this work? And that's why they're making money when other coaches are killing themselves trying to explain what they do better.
Right.
And so, yeah, it doesn't have to be that hard.
So that could have been the answer to two different questions. Mm. One is, how do you think about crafting a sales pitch? Mm. The other would be, how do you think about crafting a marketing pitch or a marketing message?
Yeah.
So, and that introduces kind of an interesting concept, which is where's the divide? And you introduced two different things. One was a billboard, which is inherently marketing focused, right? And so I would divide those two things by marketing is the opportunity to get attention, and sales is the proposition of converting the attention to a transaction. And you could define that 1,000 ways, I suppose, but that's one way to think about it. So one of the things that I'd like to divide those two or think about, or at least ask you how those two are divided in your world. But one of the things you brought up in the marketing side of it was the notion of outlining the problems somebody's having. And this unfolded as you went down the path further. But if you just stopped at, are you sitting on the curb with a bloody toe? Call this number. You'd get a lot of fucking calls.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, because it's such a match to their direct, visceral, present moment experience.
Right.
5 minutes before, that billboard would be invisible.
Right. And they don't even need to know what's being sold.
Right.
Because 100%. They were so spot on with what the problem
Absolutely.
was. That person really wants to know.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's when you can really have not to diminish people's pain, but as a provider of a solution, you can experience so much artistry and have so much fun creating messages that have nothing to do with your shiny shit. It has nothing to do with your stuff that you're giving. It really is, and again, this is a little bit cold and digital, but it's a very tactical empathy. You're being so dialed in. And I again, with clients, we have this mindset of you're going to combine Santa Claus, Sherlock Holmes, and a Navy SEAL. And if all three of them had some sort of weird love child, that would be your brain right now, because you have to be such a giving, warm energy. You have to be so forensic in the way that you're thinking about it. And then you need to be relentless and ruthless with its deployment. And I realize this may sound combative. It's not meant to be combative. It's to get past people's fractured focus. It's to get past the overwhelm that they're experiencing. It's to get past the shitty experiences they had with other people, which is not those people's fault. They're doing the best they can. It's not the client's fault. It's certainly not your fault, but it is. It's like the ability, I don't play golf anymore, but it's like the ability to know that you can hit a hole in one 9 out of 10 times at the tee. Like, that's insane. And that's what happens when people really understand this forensic psychographic approach. You don't have to be smart. You don't have to be hardworking. You just need to know what to say. And the best part is your audience will give it to you. Like, your audience will give it to you. I figured this out in the karate business, where I knew what my pain was. My pain was at 2:45, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, I got 30 minutes before everybody shows, and then I got to be on. And I don't always want to be on. I don't always want to get out there, but I don't have a choice. I don't have a staff. I'm committed to these classes, and I love to teach, but really, when I got honest with myself, I loved it because I didn't have a choice. There was no option. I had to teach. Therefore, let me make myself love it. And so I learned a lot of mental management techniques to stay in love with teaching. But when I sold, it was my first knowledge product that I ever sold, was a 3-day training on sales, marketing, and teaching. And in that sales letter, which ended in the first sales letter I ever wrote, I basically just wrote to me 3 years earlier. And I literally went back and drove around the apartment that I used to live at. And I would shop at the grocery store that I used to live at when I was broke and miserable and frustrated, really put myself in that energy. So when I would say to the readers of this letter, it's 2:45 and you're staring down the barrel of another long teaching day. You're teaching other people's kids for money to feed your own kids. In the meanwhile, when's the last time you had a family dinner? How many sunsets have you missed because you're trapped inside your own karate school? I gave that letter to 70 or 80 people and had 20 people sign up at 5K.
Yeah.
Because it was such a match. And nobody asked, how do we do it? They're like, you got me.
So if we're talking tactics on creating a marketing message, can you think about some elements to that? Yep. Or a checklist or components?
Very, very easily. Whoever the provider is, you are the message. And so, like I think the poet Rumi said, who you are speaks so loudly that I can't hear what you're saying. Might have been Emerson. And that's the thing. It's like, people are always giving us the sniff test, as they should. It's like, does this person embody the things that they're saying? And so when I had that big house in Westlake for a while, and when I got rid of that house and went on the road and started being nomadic, I didn't have the same branding. I didn't have, like, I'm in this 5,000 square foot house overlooking downtown and it's this gorgeous thing. So I thought, okay, well, and looking back, it was very strategic. In the moment, it was just me being myself. But the branding really became about freedom. I have this thing, and I actually took a picture with another phone. I have my phone, passport, and a credit card. And I took a picture of it. And I said, this is all I need to run my business. I don't need anything else. Why would I want to have a big house? Why would I want to have an office? Why would I want to do those things when really all I need is Wi-Fi? And that means wherever I'm feeling inspired, that's Wi-Fi. So since I can make money with my phone by helping people, and I've got a passport and a credit card, then where do I want to be? And so that message of absolute location freedom, financial freedom, creative freedom, and then demonstrating that consistently was wildly attractive to people. And that did what no copy could ever do. When I did a program in December of 2018, maybe 19, I don't remember. But it was called the 1 hour workday, and it was how to optimize your mind and your body and your values with your actions, with your workflow, so that you're only doing your highest and best work all the time. And so I called it 1 hour workday. We had like a week promotion on Facebook, and I just went live on my regular Facebook page. I'm like, hey, here's what I'm going to teach, and here's what I'm going to do. We have this new program, and we had I don't remember how many people, and there was a couple of discounts involved, but it was a $2,000 program. We ended up doing $180,000, almost all cash minus processing fees. Always a worthy investment to have somebody else collect your money instead of you. Easy pay direct. But I taught this program, and I told everybody, I don't know when it's going to start because I got shit to do. Like, I'm traveling. So I'll let you guys know. And I opened a Facebook group, and they all joined. And I said, I'll get to you when I get to you. I promise it'll be within the week. And then meanwhile, say hi to each other. And everybody's in the Facebook group. I love this. This is so fun. This is my dream. Blah, 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 blah. Then I showed up with spotty connection, and I'm in Dubai, and I'm just like, hey guys, I'm here in Dubai. So excited to work with you. Here's what we're going to do over the next 8 weeks, blah, blah, blah. I've told this to other professional branding experts, and they cringe.
Sure.
And I'm like, in the meanwhile, I just made $180K that was a natural result of me being myself. Am I competent? 100%. I'll put my stuff up against anybody, except I don't believe in competition. The people that are supposed to work with me, work with me.
Yeah.
The people that don't want to, don't.
And this is this is the nature of my conversations with you all the time.
Yes.
Which is, when I first met you, you had, and I think you still have it. I think I know you too well at this point to be able to simplify it or reduce it to this, but I would explain you as somebody that would walk to the edge of the woo-woo cliff, and then pull themselves back.
Yep.
And there's something great about that, because most people that are entrenched in, if you simplified the world to sort of analytical people and
hyper emotional.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah.
The hyper emotional are never coming to logic, right?
Yep.
And so the capacity to look at both of those things as they exist, which I believe they do, together, and be able to assess the situation two ways, analytically and emotionally, is powerful. So what you kind of just said was how you create a good marketing message is just don't suck so much as a person.
Yes.
Okay.
And when you suck, be honest about it. That's the thing. Everybody sucks when they're starting out. Whether you're starting a new skill or you're entering a new relationship or you're leaving a relationship, you're going to suck. I've just never hidden the fact that I suck. And people also, because they judge themselves so much for sucking, they hide it. Then when they see somebody else who is completely, this is terrible, but somebody who sucks with a smile on their face, and they're just like, yeah, I totally fucked that. It was so bad. Wow, what an adventure.
Yeah.
And they're watching, they're like scanning for guilt and shame and fear, and then they don't see any. And they're like, well, no wonder this motherfucker is like living his best life, because he's shameless.
Yeah.
Incapable of feeling guilty because he made a mistake.
Yeah.
No.
Now, I agree with all that. And I also know that is particularly relevant when somebody has a business or an offer that is completely intertwined with them as an individual, where they are the face of the thing. But I also know that when you go through these things, you are strategic in your approach to when and how you disseminate information, what the messaging is, how you approach things, and you have a path to that. And that path might be somewhat fluid, but the steps are the same. So if you pull out, if you move from, let's say, Jesse Elder providing coaching services, information, guidance, and then say, we're going to shift that brand to Harvard, right? We no longer have a face. Fundamentally, they fill a similar need in some capacity, or one could argue that.
Sure.
how do you think about what are the steps around the marketing to constructing that? What are the things you want to hit on?
Yeah.
As opposed to, like, obviously in this case, both Harvard has an identity and structure, and you can say, hey, the brand has to be consistent with the message.
Right.
But what are the elements that you want to make sure of in the marketing pitch?
Yeah, it's a great opening. It's the fundamentals are exactly the same, whether it's personal branding or something that is institutional, or an organization or a product or an experience. The fundamentals are the same. People, the buyer, is constantly looking for, is this for me? Like, is this addressing me exactly where I'm at? Meaning my problem, my the gap between where I am and where I want to be. This is a problem. And does this thing represent an aspiration that I will be proud for other people to know that I'm involved in? And that's what Harvard did at one point. I don't know if it's as good, but Harvard, West Point, all these institutions that really became institutions because they just have phenomenal branding. And most people, and you and I both have a lot of friends that are very well educated. I'm not one of them, but
disagree.
Well, not classically educated, let's say that. But it had this, Harvard, any Ivy League school has this aspirational feel to it. And most people are honest enough to know that it's not what happens in the classroom. It's the connections you make. And that's what justifies the expense. So with something that is aspirational as well as a connection to a pain point, you can continue to scale that. I have friends of mine who years ago, friends who were members of Soho House and were completely, like, I didn't know anything about it. They were like, oh, let me know when you're in Toronto, we'll go have lunch at Soho House. I'm like, what's this? And they're like, oh, dude. And they go on and on about Soho House. So I went to Chicago one time and
Chicago's is nice.
Yeah, it's very nice. So I went there, I was like, whoa, this is next level. And then over time, they diluted the brand. Yeah. Completely diluted the brand. And maybe they'll have a resurgence, maybe they won't. But the challenge for any, whether it's an organization, a product, if they don't maintain that aspirational feel, they're going to lose their momentum. And then that creates a vacuum for another competitor or better solution to come and show up, which is why, whether it's a person, the individual brand, or a company brand, being original, being authentic, and being crystal clear, that's the DNA. Because Jerry Garcia, Grateful Dead, had this great quote. He said, you don't want to be the best one at what you do. You want to be the only one who does what you do. And the reason why I don't subscribe to the notion of competition is because I just know who I am, and I know that there at any given time there are way more people that can use what I have to offer than there are me, and that's a fundamental frame that has really transformed my life, because I never get in scarcity of like, well, how am I going to make sales or whatever. It's like, no, I know that the number of people that I can help is far greater than there are me. And I teach that to clients and to people that I work with, but they have to claim their identity. And most people are too chicken to do that, which is sad.
It is. And there's a through line to all this, back to being selfish.
You got to care how you feel.
And I like that. I also really like making sure when we talk about marketing messages that one of the components of the marketing message is this, and some of that goes into product, but with the marketing message is this aspirational touch, right? Yeah. Something that you're offering is aspirational. And one of the things that struck me while you were talking about that was that's sort of the core feature of gamification. And so the concept of gamification has become not quite ubiquitous, but it's getting there. And people recognize that we'll do things for, I had somebody tell me last night that they had not tried, we've got these scooters all over the place in Austin, as in most of the world, right? But these little scooters. And now there are these other sort of pseudo bikes called wheels. Right. And I was talking to a friend of mine and she said, I haven't tried the wheels yet. And I said, well, you need to download the app now. So you download it before you actually need it, because you never want to do that in the moment. Let me stop. You just take the scooter. And she was like, well, actually, I'm just sort of stuck on the bird reward system.
Interesting.
And I was like,
Wow.
So we're talking about
Interesting.
you get a free bird ride once every 6 weeks or some shit. Right. Right. It
works though.
It's the game.
Totally works.
And she said, well, I'm gold. She was like, I don't even know what the fuck that means, but I'm gold. And that was the aspiration.
Yeah.
Right. There was an
100%.
aspiration to climb the ladder there.
Interesting.
And it's small because that's all you could do in the world of a $2 ride with Bird. But it's a really relevant point because it can exist in any product, service, et cetera.
100%. And then that brings up the intrinsic aspiration and the external aspiration, because I don't like, I'm on, Hotel Tonight. When I was traveling everywhere, that just became my thing. And I was less now that I'm not traveling so much, but I was like, level 50. And they have this beautiful graphic and it opens up. I literally screen recorded what happened, because I was like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm just like fascinated by my own consumer behavior.
Yeah.
But it's not like I want other people to know that. It's not like I'm going to put that in my bio. Maybe I should actually, but that's an intrinsic aspiration.
Yeah.
It's a secret sort of ambition, versus like Harvard, West Point. You're going to put it right out front. I'm a Harvard graduate. I graduated West Point, et cetera. So, and that's internal as well. But I love that. I think there's a great distinction, because everyone is aspiring either away from some pain or towards some joy or better feeling. And if the product or service can create that in a way that you manage both. The problem with creating too much exclusivity, unless you're going to sell to the luxury market, which is actually even easier, is that you really push a lot of people away who could be good customers.
Totally.
Mercedes did this very well when they began to tier their offers. When like the C class dropped down like 23,000 or whatever.
Right.
And then one of my students in San Antonio, my martial arts students, was one of the dealer principals of Mercedes in Bernie when they opened up, and within 5 years they became the number 2 Mercedes dealership in North America. So they nailed the customer experience, all of it. So we were talking, and he said what Mercedes did with the C class is they were targeting people who are going to be lifetime customers. So rather than Ferrari, which will say, this is who we are, come and get us, or don't, Mercedes was thinking really long range. And so they thought, we're going to make a car that is from Mercedes, that appeals to somebody just out of college, and they're going to be a Mercedes customer for life. Right. And they're going to go from a C class to E class, to an S class, to a CL, to et cetera. And because they're so in love with the brand. So that's certainly a way to do it. But it takes constant attention. And it's honestly, it's one of the things that I've struggled with, because I have this compulsion, maybe, drive, need, desire to help everybody. Like, I just want to help people. And I know that the stuff that I know and the way that I teach, the communication skills that I developed, are very useful for people across the spectrum, which is why I've made tons of free videos and I've made so many things widely available to people. I've also experienced in that a hunger that isn't fulfilled by working with everybody. Having a video that has 12 million views, like, that's awesome, but it's not like having a conversation with somebody who just had a 9-figure exit and now they're planning out who they want to be for the rest of their life. Right. It's a very different conversation. So it really comes down to what we originally talked about, like the match between who are you, whether it's the company or the individual. Who are you? Who do you want to be a hero to? And how do you manage and how do you create a very clear experience for people? And I'm not a great example of that because I'm very ambiguous. But I help people do it, and it's cool. It's really cool when people have a company culture or product culture or an experience culture that is like people immediately get it. Like the first time you held the iPhone, remember that? You're like, oh shit, the world just changed. Like that kind of thing. Or the first time somebody does virtual reality, they're like, whoa, I get it. Or like when people, we're building this farm, and when people come out there and they actually see the vision, they see what's happening, they're like, I get it. And it's that immediate affinity, that immediate connection. And if you want to sell a whole bunch of stuff to people that changes their life, that's the piece that has to be there, that story.
Well, I don't know that it has to be there. There are a lot of people that very effectively sell a whole lot of bullshit without a story. There are tons of mediocre products that accelerate in a market by leveraging other tactics. But I certainly think that it's the way to stay in alignment. Yeah. And it's the way to create the raving fans.
And that is, to me, that is the caveat, is are you happy with who you are?
Yeah.
Are you happy with the people you're serving? Are you loving the work that you're doing? To me, that would be a prerequisite.
Well, and for me, it's not, and these are all personal philosophies, but for me, it's my ambition with the things that I'm doing are to create environments when win-win-wins happen. Right? Yeah. Where all parties are thrilled with the outcome. Because when you do that, and I have a challenge doing that. I'm always trying to figure out ways to do that. But when you do that, you don't want to stop doing it. Nobody wants to stop doing it. And so there's this flywheel effect where it just keeps going as people keep feeding into it. Everybody likes it. And if one thing in that chain isn't the same, the customer doesn't like it that much. They aren't thrilled with it, right? The staff making it doesn't like it that much. They aren't thrilled with it. The person, the owner doesn't like it that much. If one thing isn't right, then that component is going to fall out of the machine.
Totally.
Right. And that's okay because they should be doing something else. Right? If the customer isn't thrilled with the product, they should be getting some other product. If the employee isn't thrilled with the company, they should be working at a different company.
1,000%.
Right? And likely you have a value misalignment, right? Or a character misalignment. Yeah. And I think that to your point, I think that if the story is very clear, it is likely to pull in the client and the employee and the entrepreneur to create that thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to talk about sales a little bit, and then I know we've got a hard stop coming up here. I want to talk about, we've got these wide-ranging ethereal answers about some of this shit. From a sales perspective, I know that you've done quite a bit via, let's call it webinar, but phone call, video call, live platform, right? You did a 24-hour webinar at some point.
24-hour Facebook Live.
Live. But do you think about outside of that, or maybe including that? Actually, I know how you approach that. I was actually climbing a mountain during that.
Yeah, that's right.
I actually chimed in on that.
I remember that.
That was hilarious.
Like, Brad's here. He's on a mountain. I remember that.
That's too funny. But outside of that, what are the elements? Do you think about kind of an arc to those webinars to bring you to the point of a close or an invitation, or what are the steps to the sales process?
The whole format. Yeah, I mean, I'll do the best I can to give an outline here in the time that we have.
It's not going to work.
Talk fast. Here we go.
It's going to be bubbles and circles and all sorts of stuff. I know it.
Clicks and chirps and whirs. Just staring into the camera. Got it? Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's so many great templates out there, and there's certainly people that have made a lot more money than I have teaching webinars. I just know that I have an insane amount of fun. It really serves people, and it's very high energy, low pressure, which is a very interesting experience for both the buyer and the seller. So you talk about the arc. When somebody's coming in, the concept that I think about is I call it the attention shot clock. You know, it's like you're playing basketball. You get the ball gets passed, and that shot clock starts ticking. And you got to pass. You got to shoot. You got to get rid of the ball. And then there's you got the shot clock is ticking down. But what if you could do something that would give you more time on the shot clock, and you could add more time? Then you just be in this constant dance, making sure it doesn't run out. And all of that shot clock would be happening within the game time. So if you can keep the shot clock full, it's ticking, add something on, ticking, add something on, then you're carrying through the whole experience of the webinar, which creates a sunk cost for people's energy and their emotions. So this is rising in importance in their life. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So what I am always doing on a webinar is, first of all, the copy makes a difference, and what it is that you're teaching and sharing makes a difference. Your reputation makes a huge difference. But then it's also understanding what are people really on there for. So one of the things that'll happen when I get on a webinar is I'm just always excited to see people. I'll do Zoom, or sometimes it's live, or screen only. But I'll just ask, I'm like, where are you guys from? Like, where in the world are you? And just to get some engagement that also creates follow through. And I don't like the word compliance, but it creates buy-in for them, when they're typing in and all this kind of stuff. And I'm extremely engaged with people when I'm coaching them. I don't see why a webinar should be any different. I can't imagine having Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like, I'm going to sell one way and teach another way. That would drive me crazy. So I sell the way that I teach, and I teach the way that I sell. So it's just one approach. So when people are on there, and I've got 300 whatever people on a Zoom, and they're typing in the comments. And they'll say like, oh, I'm from Brussels, and I'm from Melbourne, and I'm from New York. And I'm calling them out. I'm like, hey, all right. And then it'll kind of die off. And I'll be like, time out, motherfuckers. Time out. There's 332 people on this webinar. 18 of you said where you're from. What are the rest of you here for? Because if you came here to spectate and just sit at home in your underwear and eat popcorn and watch me teach, I'm not interested in doing that. And I've come very close to ending webinars. I'm like, I'm not going to be one more failure in your life. I'm not going to be one more video that you clicked and watched and then bitch and moan because it didn't work. I know this shit works. In fact, I have a 300% guarantee on all my content. It works 100% of the time for 100% of the people who apply it 100%. So if we're 2 minutes into the webinar and you're not even applying the answer to a simple question, you're never going to succeed. You're going to fail miserably, and I don't want to be supporting, enabling party to your failure. So let's try it again. Where are you from?
I love it. So would you, to me, what I heard was a reframe of a push away. And in the language that we previously used, it was reloading the shot clock. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Are those both fairly accurate?
They're both in there, exactly. And so by having that sort of real-time, engagement, you're becoming more interesting. You're adding things on. So once I have that engagement, then I will say, here's what's going to happen for you in the webinar today. And I just pre-frame the whole thing. I just tell them what's going to happen. We're going to look at what the biggest problems are in whatever it is. If you're a coach making around $10,000 a month and you can't break through to that 50 or 100K a month mark, we're going to look at the exact reasons why. We're going to look at, whatever the training is, whoever it's for, dial into really what the problem is. But then what I'll say is that this is not information experience. You got Google for that, or DuckDuckGo if you care about your privacy. You've got lots of places you can go to get information. But that information is only as good as your capacity. And then a lot of times I'll give a demonstration. I'll have a glass, and then I'll have a pitcher of water. And I'll say, here, this glass is your current capacity. This is how much you can handle. This is how much I've got for you. And if we just pour all of this, and they see the glass filling up, I said, here's what's going to happen. And I just keep going. And I have a bowl underneath me, but I'll just keep pouring. And now this thing's overflowing. And I say, now at the end, we poured a gallon of water, but you still only have 8 ounces. So if we don't increase your capacity, no amount of content is going to help you. So are you guys down to increase your capacity first? And everybody's like, yes, even though they don't know really what it means. And then I say, this is a transformation experience, not just an information experience. So who's up to go through some transformation? And it doesn't matter what I'm selling, whether it's sales, survival, men's work, and anything that I'm doing, it always comes down to how willing are you to tell the truth? And that's when we really get into it. I'm like,
so I love that. And how does that play into a non-information or improvement focused product or service? If it does.
It does, 100%. And the assumption here will be that you're selling something that people want and that produces some sort of change in their life, whatever that is. When you're selling Cutco, it's like you're not selling a knife. There's a whole bunch of things around that. So are you selling pride in the kitchen? Are you selling compliments on your food? Are you selling your identity as someone who cares about quality? I mean, there's a lot of things that go into the knife. So assuming that you're selling something that actually has value in people's lives, then you look at what I call the radiant consequences of that value introduction. Once you get this thing into your life, what's the ripple effect? And not having this thing in your life has a lot of ripple effects. So when I teach sales, and I just come out and say, who here did not hit their financial goals last month? Okay. Who here is not on track to hit their financial goals for the year? Who here doesn't even have financial goals? No judgment, but tell yourself the truth. People are like, blah, 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 blah. Now, a lot of people, and I used to make this mistake when I'd be like, all right, cool. I'm going to show you how to make more money. But there's not enough buy-in. They're not connected to what's really happening. So I'll go deeper, and there's about 4 or 5 questions that I'll ask. Each one stacks a lot of emotional weight. So by the time we go through those questions, they're actually realizing, and I've just told this to people, especially to a crowd that is a little bit more aware of their influence in the world, like they're really aware that they have an impact. And I'll just say, how many of you guys didn't grow up in a wealthy household? And most people are like, yeah, not me. And I said, all right. And how many of you had less than great examples of financial success? Everybody's like, okay. I said, how many of you guys have kids? A lot of people raise their hand. I said, then you do realize that every day that you go without making the money you know you deserve, you're actually teaching your kids how to be poor. Mm. And then people are like, fuck, like that. I'm like, so this is really a choice point. You're going to learn the exact steps today so that you can close the gap. And I'll have my phone up and just show the camera, like this guy had a $7,000 day, this person here, this person doubled his fees, this person. So there's a lot of proof. And I'll say, so you're going to get everything today. The question is, what is your commitment level to apply it? And I don't know what that is. Only you do, but I want you to be thinking about that. So we'll go through that at the very beginning. Then I'll go and teach. And then when I make the invitation, it's not about, am I going to buy Jesse's program? It's about, am I going to keep being an example of poverty for my kids? Am I going to keep, whatever it is that they've said? Got it.
Okay. So some fundamental steps, initial engagement, right? So initial engagement just to get whoever the prospect is. And this works whether it's a group or an individual.
Yes.
Right? Initial engagement, re-engage, more emotional contribution and buy-in. And the language you used previously was not compliance, but I can't remember what the alternative word was.
I think just engagement.
Engagement.
That people are communicating. And that
it was sunk cost. So you said not compliance, but they continue to build sunk cost over time. And as you go through that, one of those things that you just brought up was getting an agreement to what they are willing to contribute to the process. So you're setting a standard, setting an expectation for them of, listen, this is what I expect of you, but without saying it that way, it's what do you expect of yourself in this process?
100%.
And then they are attached to the process because they expect to be the type of person that can finish the process, whatever that process is.
Exactly. And a lot of that ties back to embodying the message because...
Agreed. Whether you're a salesperson for the brand or you are the brand.
100%. Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And then the last thing that you said was an invitation. And that's also a fundamental shift for a lot of salespeople because it wasn't, and then you close, right? It was then and where I think you're going with this is then you invite them to whatever offer you have. You invite them to be a part of the program or you invite them to purchase the product. Or
one thing that makes a huge difference is extremely clear qualifications. And I'll do that at the very beginning and I'll do it again before the invitation to buy. And so I just did this webinar on Saturday and it's for this men's group called Wealth, Women, and War. And at the beginning of it was Facebook Live in the group, but at the beginning of the live, I just said, before we get any further into this, this is a free Facebook group. I've done some screening, but let's be honest, I have no fucking idea who you are. And you only know who I am through watching my videos. So I just want to be upfront with you so you don't waste your time. This is exactly who today's training is for. And I just gave a whole bunch of examples of the type of guy that I'm looking for and that I'm here to serve. And most of it was psychological. It was guys who were able to have a beginner's mind. They were able to leave their ego not at the door, but they're able to harness their ego to learn faster than they've ever learned before. Like get competitive with yourself that you can really learn this shit. So that's an example.
So let me reframe that a little bit for other people, or try to map it onto other products and services. So another way to do that would be, you just said psychological or psychographic elements of who the buyer is, right? Of who the person is that you want in the group. The same thing could apply, but instead of looking for kind of I think most marketers or business people look at who's your target customer or target client. And usually the language they use is something like, 25 to 35-year-old males that make this amount of money, or that have this kind of business, that do this. And I think that those things are still relevant in that part of example and exchange. And the psychological components to why they might be buying, or what the pain is that they might have, are other things that you would want to tie in to the beginning. Is that fair?
Yeah, 100%. And the language that comes to match that should arise naturally out of your embodiment. It's like, not once have I ever thought, okay, how do I need to say this so that they get it? Oh, like I'm going to talk the way I'm going to talk. And a lot of my own language patterns have evolved in deep dialogue and communion with clients. So I've found myself evolving, and my own language patterns changing naturally as a result of working with a certain caliber of person, so that when it comes out in a training, like I'm basically connecting the two. Like, these are my clients and these are my prospects.
So let me give like some actionable steps, because there are, and I called this out earlier, but there are several people that have, multi-million dollar, tens of millions, hundreds of millions in annual revenue that don't do any of that, right? That have a very feature and benefit focus.
Totally.
And their target market is this demographic. But for those people, and really for anybody, this is an invitation to pull your fucking audience.
Yeah.
Get to know what your buyers actually
100%.
want and how they talk.
100%.
And that's how you can refocus your brand and your dialogue to be in the voice of them,
right,
as opposed to the voice of you.
Exactly. And all that requires, and it's a big ask for a lot of people, is to put your ego aside, so that it's not about, hey, look what I can do for you, and then that's just all self-serving, but really put yourself, like humble yourself and hear what they're actually saying, and then just repeat it back to them. And when people hear that, man, they feel so seen and heard and supported. It's like this emotional oxygen. They're like, wow, I feel like I'm home. And literally it's just you telling them what they just told you, but it's powerful.
I love that. Well, to be continued in a never-ending fashion.
Yeah, always.
It is always. It's ongoing.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming, man.
Yeah, thank you.
I think there's some awesome, both theoretical, ethereal, open-ended loops and questions to dive into there. And then there's also a bunch of really tactical sales, marketing, and product creation, and really mindset things as well.
It's all the same. I mean, it's all different threads in the same tapestry.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, man. Until the next time.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
If you learned one thing on this episode, share it with another entrepreneur. They need to hear it. Also subscribe so that new episodes just show up on your phone. It's a lot easier that way. And if you want the really good stuff, check out our free BAM! Tactics and Strategies course. It's where we curate the best tips, tricks, and tools that our guests know, whether they've shared them on the podcast or not. Just go to beyondamill.com. You'll also find previous episodes and show notes at beyondamill.com.